Hello, busy dads and busy people everywhere. Welcome to another episode of the Busy Dad podcast. Today's episode was a long time coming, and I greatly enjoyed making this one. Our guest is Joe Lee. Joe appeared on the podcast in the first series, and we'd made a date for this episode to mark 12 months of unbroken 80 minutes per week training for Joe. 12 months without missing a single minute of his weekly training commitment. I wanted to call Joe in fresh off that massive personal victory so that all of you could be inspired, so that you could see for yourselves that special pride and self-respect that we can build as practitioners when we've got a serious amount of training time under our belt and we know the sacrifices that we had to make to honor the commitments. So, my friends, if you are at the beginning of your training journey and you're wondering what this can do for a person, you see my example all the time, but please also enjoy this conversation and ask yourself whether or not the energy that Joe is exuding is an energy that you want to build yourself. To ask that question, my friends, is to answer it. And I give you my good friend, Joe Lee.
Okay, Joe Lee, welcome back to the Busy Dad podcast, my friend. It is so wonderful to have you here.
Oh, thanks, Max. I'm absolutely delighted to be back. Thanks for the invitation. It's been a wee while coming. We kind of planned this one a while ago, so there's been quite a lot happened since we agreed the date for it. I'm sure we'll get into that, but yeah, great to be here. Great to be chatting to you again.
Great to see you too, my man. For people listening, very often when we organize a podcast episode, it's very ad hoc. I might say to someone on a given Tuesday, hey, man, do you want to come on the podcast next week? But this has been a long-standing date that Joe and I have made. And maybe, Joe, you could share with people listening why we chose now, why we had this appointment.
Yeah, so we settled on this date back at the start or sort of middle of April, because basically, actually, we had coaching practice, and it was like 12 to 13 months, and that sort of came to an end. But as that coaching came to an end, we were looking at what were the next steps for me, and the sort of number one immediate goal for me was to keep the practice going and get to a year consecutive. So very pleased to say that I did hit a year consecutive last week, and that was a great feeling. I've never stayed the course with any form of exercise for so consistently for so long, and it's not just 1 year I've been doing the burpees. Actually, thinking about it, I think I started experimenting probably over 2 years ago with Busy Dad.
Mhm.
But then it's been since the start of 2024. So I'm now a year and a half exclusively into the burpee training. And of that, I've only actually missed 4 weeks due to 2 bouts of illness, but
Mhm.
that's now a year consecutive. So,
So
that
for
was
12 months, you've not missed a minute.
not missed a minute. And it's always been for 20-minute sessions, which is the gold standard, as you say. I know, Max, that you occasionally dip into a longer session. I think anyone who is a practitioner would understand that I have never had the slightest desire to do a session that's longer than 20 minutes. That is enough.
Mhm.
And so it's always been, yeah, four 20-minute sessions. I only recall over the last year, there was one occasion when I had to get a late Sunday night session in. I think it was like 9:30 on Sunday night, and I'm like, it's really the last thing in the world you want to do is burpees at that time. But it's like, when you've put so much effort in consistently, you're like, I'm not blowing this now. Just get the 20 minutes done. So I did honestly, Max, feel quite a big bit of pressure the closer it got,
Yep.
because I started really being aware of it when I was at about 40 weeks.
Mhm.
And it's like, I'm not really that far away, but it's far enough away that it's like a bit daunting. Um, and then the closer it got, I would say the more pressure I felt. The last week in particular, the final week, I felt like I was crawling towards that year mark by my fingernails. And then see, once I hit the year, it really felt a massive weight off the shoulders. Actually, I just kind of felt a bit free with it, and then I've continued into, so this is week 1 of year 2.
There you go, my man. It's funny when you reach one of your goals and you realize that all you get as your reward for reaching your goal is just more of the same.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I got to ask, what was the significance of 12 months? Why was that number important to you? Because that's something we talked about quite a bit. It obviously meant a lot to you. You had to prove something to yourself, and for some reason, 12 months was the number. Why that number?
Yeah, no, there wasn't a specific reason about a year, but it was more just when we started the coaching. I remember it was quite stop-start initially.
Yeah.
I remember being very frustrated because I hadn't been unwell for like 2.5 years. We had 3 coaching calls, and then I was out the game for 3 weeks. You never said to me, but I was thinking, oh, Max will think I'm never coming back. I'm just a joker. But I came back, and then I think it was maybe about 2 months in again, there was another sort of short period of illness where I wasn't able to do anything. So I did feel a kind of frustration there. There was that stop, start. And that was really the story of my training life. I've sort of consistently been training with one form or other for a number of years. Just try to keep healthy. But then there was something about the burpees that just kept me going. It was like there's no matter what's going on, there's no reason really why I couldn't find the 20 minutes. But whether it's healthy eating or whether it's been exercise, I've never really managed to stick it for longer than a few months. So
Yeah.
a year just felt like I've
Yep.
finally kind of broken that.
That cycle. Yeah, no, for
Yeah.
sure, man. There's a heft to 12 months to a year, and being able to say, I've been training more or less consistently versus I haven't missed a session. That
Yeah.
practitioner's pride that we can take in our consistency, it really means a lot. And for me, the year was also significant, and for the same reasons. I think our training histories were quite similar. I mean, I'd thrown myself quite deep into certain physical activities and disciplines, and it would be 3 months on, 3 months off. And I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate to that, of
Yeah.
just being patchy. And then at a certain point, you enter into a new undertaking, and whether you know it or not, your kind of deep script is, well, I'm only going to last for 3 months. And so often we don't even know what we're telling ourselves that story, but we are. And the only way that you can uproot those stories is by proving to yourself that you're not that person anymore.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't about the strength of your resolutions and how intensely inspired you felt. It was about proof of concept through action.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you've done.
Yeah, exactly, Max. The whole concept of the Busy Dad program is, as I'm sure your watchers are aware of, is that idea of being a practitioner. And you definitely touched on that in the newsletter you sent out as well. It was sort of very timely where you spoke about earning the right to call yourself a practitioner, and that's something that we've spoken about over the last year and a bit. And I knew that, like, okay, I definitely am. I'm doing this, but like there was just something about the year. It's like, I guess, I mean, I don't know the training histories of the other guys and the other guys that have been in the podcasts. I'm sure there's I'm sure there'll be plenty of guys who are maybe doing far higher numbers. But I did wonder, I wonder how many are like never missing a session and, get it in. I just thought, I was like, to be honest, Max, I was quite chuffing myself. I'm not afraid to say that, but the idea of,
No, you're
really
right.
sort of being that practitioner and just being like having that discipline.
Yeah.
And there's been plenty that has, over the course of a year, life throws a lot at you.
Yeah.
There have been many, many reasons to, or there could have been many excuses, I think, but I never took any of those excuses.
How close did you get?
Probably that Sunday night session was maybe the closest. But I think even a few months in, I was just like, I had no inclination to pack it in. There was maybe one or two moments where you're just like, oh, I really scunnered with this, but I think I've just really adapted to the discipline of it. And the vast majority of the workouts, I would sort of label them as like maintenance workouts, where it's just like, just keep it going. And there was quite a few, maybe in the last months, from kind of late March, April, where the numbers really dipped, and it was really just do the 20 minutes. It doesn't matter as long as you're doing something and just keeping something going, just to maintain it and keep it going, you know. So I never really felt it was like I was too determined to let it go, basically, Max. And it was just like when you're at the 40-week mark and then you're getting 45, 50, it's like, don't throw it away. You're so close, you know.
Yeah. And look, for people listening, you can take our word that Joe is a busy dad, and this past year has not been straightforward. You know, a lot of people, I mean, I often reflect that, like, my life at this point, my daughter's she's grown up, but she sleeps well at night, and our routine is pretty predictable, and there's just so little upheaval that we have to deal with in our life that it's been just really easy for me to keep the practice going. It's never really been shaken or tested. You know, you've had a lot of stuff going on, and you've had to create this kind of parallel universe for your training practice. Looking back now that you've weathered this year of your life and you've kept the practice strong, how do you feel?
Well, I feel really pretty good about that, to be perfectly honest, Max. I think you're right. There has been a lot of ups and downs. You know, busy dad of three children. You know, my oldest son, he's 18. My daughter's 9. My middle son, he's 12 and a half. So that certainly has its challenges between work, between all the other things that I like to do. Playing in a couple of different bands, that has various commitments. There's so much going on, but this has really been the kind of one of the I don't know, anchors or sort of bedrocks over the last year. And I think, you know, when I look back, you know, sort of kind of reflecting on your last question, Max, as well, about how, you know, you get close to quitting. There was a time end of March, we were still doing our coaching every week. And to be honest, I think I was sort of coming toward, I was coming to the point where I thought I need to just kind of go out on my own, and it felt like maybe a natural time for the coaching to take a break. And I had a bit of a sort of personal crisis or family crisis, in that you know, my son suddenly became extremely unwell, like very seriously unwell. And I remember speaking to you, and I thought, like, yeah, I'm pretty much done. I was like, I can't do the coaching anymore. I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to do the burpees, because at that time, you know, looking back, life was sort of hour by hour and then day by day. You know, it was really a very stressful time. But it wasn't, you know, a kick up the backside is not the right way to put it, but you just really reiterated to me, it's like, well, you've been working so hard to build this practice that it seemed to you, it was obvious to you as a sort of outsider of that situation, that like, this is the moment that you've been building the practice for, you know, and that really kind of resonated with me, and it stuck with me. It's like, oh, Max is right. And that, you know, that was a kind of period where I was like really dragging myself through the practice. There was a million things going on in my life, real genuine crisis type stuff. But I just decided to keep it going. And there was a few workouts in there where the numbers like seriously dipped. Like I was hitting numbers maybe just beyond when I first started doing burpees a couple of years ago. But I really didn't care. It was just like, well, it's not always about the numbers. It's about doing the 20 minutes 4 times a week. And then the other thing that really helped me at that time, and it only came through just the discipline of routine, with it, doing things without necessarily thinking about it, was actually the cold water practice. something I was doing before we, we started working together. But there was, just as that crisis was coming off, or was kicking off, I was operating on very little sleep. I was extremely anxious and worried. And I think, looking back, I think it's the closest that I've ever had to being having a panic attack. I don't know if it was one, but like I couldn't control my breathing. I was just all over the place. And I had to get ready and I had to leave the house quickly. And then it was like I went through the process of just like cold shower, and that really shocked me out of it. And I found that really valuable, because I kind of used that to give myself a shock a few times, and kind of that also helped me through. And that, I think, looking back, that as I say, that only came because it was just the disciplined routine of it. If I had never had a cold shower before, and someone suggested that to me there, I'd been like, how could I do that in the midst of this going on? So that was that has been a real kind of focus of the last year as well. Because I don't really regard my sessions as finished until I've had a cold shower after. So
good man. Which in the winters in Glasgow, I imagine is pretty off-putting.
It's not for the faint of heart, Max. That's for sure.
Yeah. One thing that I love about this idea of becoming a practitioner is, of course, it has everything to do with self-respect, with self-belief, learning, showing yourself that you can do things, that you can show up, that you can transcend disinclination. But there's also like a fraternity element. There's a community of practitioners. And there's the sense that there are practitioners listening to this podcast. There are practitioners all over the world who we've never met. But at some deep level, we are in connection with each other, and we have enormous amounts of respect for each other. And just, hearing your story and hearing how you were able to stay in the practice through that crisis period, the way you were able to use cold water, the bravery it took to, instead of just staying in your kind of disorientation, to just smash yourself with cold water. I can relate to so much of what you're saying, but also because I've never been in that situation, I feel such great admiration for you. And there is this wonderful mutual respect between us practitioners, and it's like, the numbers are irrelevant. You and I are doing different numbers, but at a very deep level, we are peers. And in fact, at a very deep level, you are my teacher and I'm learning from you. I found it just so inspirational to watch you weather that storm. And I'm so pleased that you did, man. I'm so pleased that you did.
Yeah, thanks, Max. I'm delighted that I did, because I can look back now and things personally are, in terms of the family, are certainly a lot better. They're on the right path, and a lot calmer, which is great. And I agree with you 100% in terms of like having massive respect for the other practitioners. So as we spoke about at the start, this podcast has been in the diary for a long time. But then when you started the second season of the podcast, like you were really bringing out the big guns. Looking back, so I've got my notes. Like what comes to mind is Alex. I know that was the second time on it. It's extremely impressive what he's doing. I really like. Do you know? I really hit home that one actually, because Alex spoke about a lot of difficulties he had in childhood, about body image and maybe having a rough time at school and all that. And it just hit. It was like, I found it really powerful, But then he's got incredible numbers. There was your man Tobias, who's just like an absolute burpee machine. You've then had the other Glaswegian on, Lee Hazard from Strong and Conditioned. So these guys are like doing phenomenal numbers, or the sort of burpee YouTube guys in their own right. And I really felt the kind of pressure, because I was like, how can I go on that podcast and keep this level of company, But I think the points that you make, it's like, well, okay, yeah, the numbers might be different, but it's still 80 minutes a week, kind of trying to be a practitioner, you know, and that kind of gave me a bit of confidence as well. But it did help having that pressure for sure, because as things kind of got better, in the home life coming up, I used the goal of like having this podcast. It was like the goals were, right, hit a year, then I'm like, I have to go into that podcast for two new personal bests, you know. So I've been keeping in touch with yourself obviously over the last couple of weeks in the build up to this, and yeah, hitting a new 6 count personal best a couple of weeks ago. I sent you a vid, like you were the first person I told, took a video, just drenched in sweat, could barely breathe, you know, but just that joy of being able to, of finally doing it. It took me 7 months to beat my previous one.
Yes, I know it's private between us, but a part of me wants to share that video that you sent, because you were just radiating such joy in that video, man. You'd worked so hard for that.
Yeah, it was. I would rather that was kept between us.
Fair enough. You're a sweaty mess, but yeah, it was.
Does not need to see a sweaty Jolie, you know. And then so I hit the year, and then as I said earlier, like the pressure, I felt the pressure was off. And then my very first session of year 2, new personal best with the SEALs as well, and I went in, did my cold shower after it. You know, I actually sort of, instead of the usual shock of like, the cold water, I actually burst out laughing, because I just thought, you cannot buy a feeling like this. I've just hit a year. I've just hit the new personal best that I've been, like, I thought it was just totally out of reach a couple of months ago. It was like doing about 50% of that. And I just thought, you can't buy this. It only comes through that patience and discipline, and just kind of trust in the constant 4 times 20 minutes, which you alluded to in your newsletter last week, Max, you know. So in a really good place with the practice right now, and looking to build, you know. It was 130 was my SEALs, not 130 SEALs, I wish. 136 counts, 68 SEALs. So looking to build, next big landmarks would be the 150, 1D, and then an 80, which is level 2 for the SEALs. So
Yeah. And I saw the work that you put in, man, and I respect the work, and I felt the joy with you when you'd been plateauing in the, you know, around about 120. I mean, even 120 had been out of reach for a while, and then you just blasted through it. And as for what you say about, you know, keeping company with other practitioners, we need the numbers. We need these objective standards that we chase, because if we don't have standards to chase, we'll never bring out the best in ourselves. But the numbers are there because of what they call forth in ourselves. They don't matter in their own right. They matter for what they call forth. And what we recognize in each other is that thing that comes out of ourselves in the context of a hard session. You know, you and I have never trained in person together, but a couple of days ago, I was training with 2 dads in New Hampshire. And you know, I took them over the line to level 2. And as we were going, of course, like for me, that's a warm-up session. I wasn't feeling much. But I'm thinking, who's the most accomplished practitioner here? Because I'm looking left and right at these guys. And I don't know when I last worked as hard as those guys are working right here and right now. I felt, and that is the thing that this is all about. And that is the thing that we respect. And the numbers are there just to bring that out of ourselves. But the numbers don't, you know, if you're an Olympic athlete and you cruise through 306 counts and you don't build this practice, you know, good for you. But like, that's not what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking about a practitioner. Whereas if you spend 12 months working towards 56 counts and you make sacrifices in the process, you know, you have my complete respect. And so, you know, that is what this fraternity is all about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like specific on that note of doing the workout with your two friends, I watched that one, and I was really chuckling to myself watching your friends, because I could just see the agony that they're going through, you know. And I'm just like, massive respect, because I know what that sort of agony is like. Because not every session, you know, I know you started talking, Max, with your app about giving yourself it was an RPE, rate of perceived exertion. By no means is every session a 10. I don't think you can operate. You can't do a 10 4 times a week. It's just not like it. But to get a personal best, you are needing to do that 10.
You're going to have to pepper some 10s in there.
Oh yeah, for sure. A couple of 10s over the last few weeks. But and talking of the numbers, like hitting that number and hitting a kind of new benchmark that you set for yourself, I actually immediately saw how the 150 and then the 80 that I just mentioned. I was like, I for the first time ever saw them as possible. Because to be honest, Max, for most of the year, I've been watching your videos and it's like, maybe not the best mindset. I'm just like, well, I'll never be at the 300s, right? But then I used to think it's not that long ago. It's just over a year ago. I'd never hit 100, and I'm like, oh man, if I could do 100, and then I'm like, oh, I've just done 130, and I really could see how the path had opened. And so actually, your was for the 130 I got was your follow along of the 115
right?
minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, that was kind of key, because it really, like, for the first time I was able to do a follow along and actually keep not the pace with which you did every single movement. And it was actually getting a wee bit technical with the burpees here, but it was the 2 and the 5 movement, like the legs out and back in, that I was doing it much quicker than I had done previously. And it was like, it unlocked something in my brain. It's like, that is how I get to that next level. So I've really been working on that. And, that was a big improvement in my technique. I think that has kind of cleared the path in my mind to how do I move on. I mean, to get to 150, I don't think it's going to be an easy road. I don't think it's coming quickly, to be honest. But it will come, it will come.
It will come. And, I remember something we used to reflect on in our sessions together was this idea of systems over goals, that if you rig up the system correctly, if you are just routinely hitting 4 20-minute sessions a week, preparing and recovering properly, and you're willing to put in decent effort in every session with the occasional 10 out of 10 push, it is the inevitable byproduct of a well-functioning system that you will make progress. And so the 150 is there for you, and it will come. And when it comes, you'll lay claim to it, and then you get to the top of a mountain, and from the summit, all of a sudden the view opens up, and you'll be able to imagine a path towards 175, and it will just continue in that way incrementally. Between where you're standing number-wise and where I'm standing, there's 100 kind of micro evolutions that you will make physiologically, but also psychologically. And you can't make them all at once. And from where you're standing, it's hard to imagine making them. But if you just respect the practice and honor your commitments, you will make them. And you've made 100 micro evolutions to get from where you started to where you are now. Why on earth can't you make 100 more?
Yeah.
There's absolutely no reason why you couldn't take this program all the way to graduation.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, Max, I'm doing more than double the numbers that I did when I first ever started. So I know that it's possible to double the numbers. Therefore, it's possible for me to get to like your 260s and beyond. Like it's of course physically possible. Daunting for sure. But like, I actually really do want to get there. I think it's just give that new PB. It just gives you that extra oomph and drive to keep going with it. It's like it works. This just that constant discipline works, even when maybe 90% of the workouts just feel maybe routine, but then it's that 10% that just or can be transformative, and to go from, well, I was at 121, and then I was actually aiming for 122 to beat it by 1, but it just blasted through it, and it was like, where did that come from?
Yep.
Such an incredible feeling,
It is. And, it comes when the practice is ready and not before. But when it comes, it's a glorious thing. It's a glorious thing.
Absolutely.
But of course, we're not training for those days. There's there's this beautiful Kipling poem where he talks about learning to treat both victory and defeat as imposters. As you don't have any right to these things, and they don't define you. They pass through your life, and you, of course, celebrate the victories and, of course, commiserate in the defeats, but without getting too attached to either. And in the meantime, you just live in this rhythm and this process and this practice.
Yeah.
When someone invests in themselves in the way that you did, they inevitably inspire other people. And one of the things I absolutely loved for a period in my coaching is that I was working with the three Lee brothers. Joe inspired his two brothers into burpee practice. It was so wonderful to get to know the whole family a little bit. What do you have in terms of community around your practice at the moment? Are you also kind of sharing your practice with those guys at the moment? And where are they at? Jerry, Tom, I'm thinking of you guys. Where are they at in their practice?
Yeah, so we developed we obviously got a WhatsApp group, the three of us, and we kind of get into the routine of like every single workout was reported back. It's like 6 counts, numbers, seals numbers, every single one. And Jed and Tom have maybe fallen by the practice has fallen by the wayside a bit, So Tom has become a busy dad recently, which is great, but that of course brings its many challenges in terms of time commitments and things like that. But I think what's been good is that I actually never once have stopped just texting them, telling them my numbers. And so I kind of think every single text that I send them about that, it's just like that little reminder when you guys getting back into it, And to be fair, I think that there's been movements in that recently where there's been a few burpee sessions happening and things. So I mean, those guys are maybe, let's say, a little bit lighter in their feet than me, so they like to go running and stuff like that. Whereas I'm like, no, I'll just do my burpees. But yeah, just constantly giving them that encouragement. I think you need that, and I'm fortunate in that they encourage me, and other people around me sort of encourage me, and never seem to get bored hearing about my burpees, or maybe they do, but they just are very polite about it.
No, they know what it's like. They know what it means. They've been there. And a message to those guys and to anyone else who has lost their way in their practice. The Busy Dad program is not going anywhere, my friends. And you can always come back. You can always come back, and there is no shame in coming back. It can be really hard to get back into the practice when you're having to work your way through numbers that used to be easy, and now they're not easy anymore. And it's hard not to get angry at yourself and frustrated, but just a little bit of humility, a little bit of patience, and just a kind of return to the practice. This program is going nowhere.
I think that's actually been part of my motivation as well, Max, is that I know that from experience that every tiny gain that you make, you have to work so unbelievably hard for, and that can be lost almost instantly. If I took a month off, I just dread to think where I would be in that first session back.
Burpee gains are like reputation. They're hard won and easily lost, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like I just don't want to go back to it. I'd wanted to touch as well on an idea that we spoke about a few times,
Please.
that I found really beneficial, and I think others might benefit from. And you spoke about the idea of conscious and unconscious competence and incompetence. And so what I really loved was like that this idea of like getting your training to the point where you're doing it almost unconsciously. And I think that there's an element of me that has maybe got to that allowed me to get over the year consecutive mark, because so many times, like I work from home a lot of the time, and I've in my calendar 4 days a week, busy dad training 12 o'clock. And so often I just like do my work, notification, go and train. And that's a different mindset that I've developed. It's just become this almost, routine but just sort of, oh, I don't even think about it. I'm just doing 20 minutes now. Whereas I've never had that, certainly not going to the gym. I did go back to the gym recently for like cardio work, but that didn't last long at all. I'm just can't stand that place, you know. So I really like that, and I've sort of tried to get it into other areas of my life about like nutrition and trying to eat healthier and stuff. And you know, you made me laugh. We had a conversation a while ago saying like you're stuck, because the reality is now with the terms of healthy eating, I am stuck between let me get this right, the conscious incompetence. Like you're either you know that you're not doing well, or like you are having to make a real effort to eat properly and do well. And it's like once you're in that place, you can't go back to the very bottom when you don't know that you're not sort of letting yourself down or whatever, you know. It's I'm sure you can apply that idea to loads of things, but that really did help me in my training.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Perhaps it will be worth rehashing that idea briefly for people who haven't come across it. I came across it in the context of reading Casey Means's book, Good Energy, which I really loved. And so there's this spectrum. On the one side, we have unconscious incompetence, which means you do something very badly, but you have so little information about what it would be to do the thing well that you don't even know you're doing it badly. And that's if you eat junk food all day, but you've never really educated yourself about nutrition, then you can be unconsciously incompetent when it comes to eating. And the nice thing about being unconsciously incompetent is that you're unconscious. You don't have to think about it. And sure, you're poisoning yourself, but at least you don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get the information, you can't go back to that place. And so now there's going to be a phase that you have to move through. The worst place of all to be, for sure, is conscious incompetence. You know what you should be doing and you fail to do it, and you know why it matters that you're failing to do it. And that is just wretched, because you don't get any of the ignorance is bliss of the unconsciously incompetent, and you don't get any of the benefits of people who are competent. So when we pass over into competence, okay, at the first level, there is conscious competence. You know, you do it, but it's a huge effort, and you really have to muster up all of your willpower to get there. But where we're ultimately trying to head is unconscious competence. Whether you want to or not, you're going to train 4 times a week. It is just built in. You don't have to think about it at all. And you've taken your training practice to that place. I think that is a real part of the value of just, you can't actually be consistent over the course of a year without having built the training practice into your life so deep that it's just not an open question whether you're going to hit the workouts.
Yeah. I think I did get to that place, but I'm also sort of quite jealously guarding it, because I know that it will just take one week or one, maybe even one missed workout. You know, that it's the same when it comes to the healthy eating. You can go so long, and then all it takes is one delicious chip, and suddenly it's the floodgates open. You know, and it's it can be broken so easily. So you really do have to guard these things jealously.
You're so right. You're absolutely right. It's such a good point to make. It's like with nutrition, when I'm like deep in a groove of eating all the right foods, I can't imagine ever eating badly again. It's like it doesn't even make sense to me. And as you say, you can step out of that universe so quickly without even realizing it.
Yeah.
And the same thing can happen with training. And so it's important that we jealously guard these practices, for sure. That is absolutely part of the practitioner's mindset. Listen, my friend, we had blocked out 45 minutes for today. We also wanted to have a little catch up, just you and me. So we're going to need to bring this to a close. But to end, a lot of the people listening to this podcast haven't yet begun their practice. Of course, we've got our fellow practitioners who have been nodding away all the way through. But for people who are considering whether to begin the Busy Dad program, what would be your advice?
My advice would be give it a go, and know that like if you show the willingness to just have that dedication, turn up 4 times a week and just keep going with it, like go through the kind of initial pain barrier. The rewards are so great, and like if I can do a year, I think anyone can. You know, I'm by no means an athlete. was so far from being a practitioner a year and a half ago. But I've got there just through that kind of that constant desire to better myself, and I think that this is a brilliant avenue to do that, and it will become. I hope that it will become for you like an anchor point in your life, because it's not just about the training. It's about so much more than that, and it can be an anchor to really improving your life in a lot of ways. I would highly recommend giving it a go. Only two movements,
Yeah,
6
it's
weeks,
only.
it feels, that's it.
Listen, I suspect that in a year from now, there's going to be a crop of new practitioners who trace their practice back to your example and hearing you speak. So, Joe, thanks for taking the time, my friend. It's been so wonderful to catch up. And to those of you listening, if you enjoy what you're hearing, there'll be plenty more episodes of the Busy Dad podcast coming up. But, Joe, it was delightful to have you back on the show.
Thanks.